Tonight on the Goblin's Corner.
Crafting on a budget with DM Scotty.
That's how we roll. 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 That's how we roll.
Welcome to the Goblin's Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We are doing crafting on a budget with DM Scotty.
that's right. DM Scotty is the creator of the YouTube series TheDMsCraft, a TTRPG crafting channel for miniatures and terrain. DM Scotty makes all sorts of amazing tabletop work, as well as showing people new to the hobby, as well as old, how to create all sorts of things from scratch and also very cheaply to boot. He's also very active in the crafting community and is always interested in helping people play better games, and we're super excited to have him this evening. DM Scotty, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks guys for having me. So great to be here.
Not a problem. So tell us a bit about your show real quick.
Yeah, I'll do a little history. I hadn't played D&D for quite a while, and I just decided that I had some friends at work, and they were like, "Oh, let's play D&D." And I was like, "Oh, you've DM'd before. Why don't you DM?" So like, okay, so I started again, and this was about 15 years ago, actually. So I started DMing, and I wasn't satisfied with just the theater of the mind. I come from a war game background. I love my little toys. I wanted miniatures and terrain. It's like, how can I do this? And I wanted to do it cheap and quick. So I thought, how can I do this cheap and quick? And then I came up with doing all the cardboard and the hot glue and all that stuff. You can see that on my channel. But when I started doing it, it was such a hit at the table, and I'm like, well, I need to share this. And YouTube, I've been on YouTube for 10 years now. So YouTube was just starting at that time, starting to get popular. And
It was just you. It wasn't the tube.
Right.
I'll put a few videos up. And I did. And I thought, oh, I'll get if I get a couple dozen people like it, it was worth it. I gave to somebody, I gave to the community. And then I got, a couple dozen, and I got 100, and then I got 1,000. And then, they kept building. And then now, you can't even go to YouTube if you're interested in this stuff, without hitting a crafter on you, a crafter doing this stuff on YouTube. So it's blown up just exponentially, which is fantastic because there's so many sources now for people to see things. But that was kind of how it started, and that's why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to share that, hey, you can take this kind of crafting and port it into your D&D game or role-playing game, and bring it to the next level, add that kind of fun to it, as well as just the fun of crafting. Crafting itself is fun. And so all that combined, I think, really created this kind of big community that is just expanding every day.
That's fantastic. I love it. I enjoy watching crafting stuff, even though I personally am not much of a crafter. It's super interesting to me how different people's brains work. Like,
totally, and it's totally a key into that. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I love to make stuff, and I gotta say, you're one of the people that I've watched over the years craft stuff, and I send people particularly because it doesn't have to be a hard thing to learn. It doesn't have to be expensive. And it's something that is a lot of fun with just a little bit of time, really. I mean, you could definitely fall down the rabbit hole and go crazy with some of this stuff. But, that being said, it's a great intro into playing, and it's something I think we talk a lot about thematics on this show and storytelling, and visual storytelling is something that's very important. Set the stage, get everybody into playing games.
And not everybody processes audibly, right? Some people, it doesn't matter how well you explain it. If they don't have an object in front of them, they just don't get it.
Absolutely.
It's just, how different people's brains work.
Yeah.
Right. And when you do have those objects in front of it, everybody gets it. Those people, as well as the theater of the mind people, they all get it. And I'm a person that, we do a lot of role play in my groups, and, I don't always put down terrain. Sometimes we'll theater the mind stuff. If they go into a town and they're just talking to people or buying things, I may not put a piece of terrain down.
Sure.
because it's not really tactical at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's more like you're feeling the place out. So you know, actually I think putting a bunch of houses down could be detrimental to that, because the players are concentrating more on what the cool layout you've got, and not like actually getting in, you know, talking with the NPCs and getting a feel for the place. You know, so I think as well as, you know, helping a game, you know, you can kind of pull it back and make it about the toys, when I want to try to make everything work together.
Absolutely.
The sets and the imagination of the players filling in the details when there aren't sets. So yeah. Another thing you talked about, you know, going down the rabbit hole of crafting, is that there are some fantastic builds out there that can take weeks and weeks and weeks to make, with, you know, all kinds of expensive tools and materials, and you got to buy all this stuff. It's like, you don't have to do that, right? I'm kind of worried that people will be too intimidated. They see this fantastic stuff and they get too intimidated to try it.
Mhm.
It's like, when you start crafting, don't say I'm going to build Minas Tirith. You know what I'm saying? It's like, build a small goblin dungeon. You know, do that first. Do something simple first, and then build on your skills. And then if your ambition is to do that, you know, work towards that. But you don't have to do that. Like, if you're a new crafter, start small.
Now, speaking of Minas Tirith, we've got
Question of the week.
So and which I love, because such a great
Good
segue.
lead in.
Yeah. So
Good
Matt,
job.
what is the question of the week?
What is your dream build? The thing that you've been putting off creating?
The dream build. That's a great question. And this is going to be kind of a weird answer. But the dream build is my next inspired game. Okay. Usually that happens when I go to conventions, because I got to build something that I can transport, right? I've got to build it so I can transport it. I've got to make it thematic so it fits. I try to make the visuals fit the theme and everything of the game. So all this stuff is going into the game, and that is my next big build. So, for example, I did a convention where I was doing vampire hunters. I just did this. So I was doing vampire hunters. So it's like, I'm going to have 4 locations. What do I need for those locations in the game? So, you know, that's what gets me excited. And it also gets me excited to, like, how compact can I make this, right? How can I fit this in a case that I can take to a convention? Now, sometimes my case might be, you know, this big. It might be a trunk, but it's gonna, you know, I've got to pack everything in there. So that's always a challenge. And that's always my next challenge, because I'm always like, oh, I want to run this game. It'd be great. You know, I've done games where I talked about the Vampire Hunter game, which was fantastic. I did a game which was a retro sci-fi, and I do this thing where I use plastic containers and put terrain inside the containers, and then just take the lids off. And so I basically made a rocket ship out of containers, and just put
that's cool.
You know, all the you know, controls and all that stuff and the terrain in the containers, and just lay the containers out on a star mat. And then, you know, there you go. You have the rocket.
Nice.
So you made like modular terrain that is its own container.
I call them terrain modules. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
I like the concept.
Yeah. I also did that for a Star Trek game that I did, like a Star Trek. I didn't want it to be Star Trek, but I want it to be like Star Trek, so I could have my own lore. And I did the same thing. I did a ship out of terrain modules.
What about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, D&D just released that Spelljammer's coming back, one of my favorite games, and they're mixing it with Planescape, which, as we mentioned before, Matt, you called it.
I did.
I would
November 21st last year.
Yes.
I said this was going to happen, and 5 months to the day, they made the announcement that proved me right.
Yes. So I would say I would love to craft the astral plane, like a nice astral plane mat. I'm not saying the whole astral plane mat. An astral plane mat, like an MAT, not an MATT, of maybe part of a dead god or a Githyanki fortress or something cool so that I could stick a ship on it.
I could see that.
So I'm thinking lots of iridescent paint and stuff for the Astral Sea.
And like black light, you could use like black light paints.
Yeah, so black
and
light
then have
paints?
black lights at your table. And I've done that before. It's fantastic. It's really a cool effect.
I love that idea. That'd be kind of
yeah,
cool.
It's awesome.
you know, it'd be neat to do is to find one of the shiny shower curtains and just kind of rumple it up a little bit and cut it on a piece of board and then just resin it so that it's flat, but it looks like it's like an astral sea. That'd be pretty sick to do. I'd love to do that.
That would be neat. That's a neat idea. Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
Much in the same vein, because I am who I am, and the announcement that they made today, which will tell people when we recorded this, but it's fine. I would love to make a large Elven Armada. The crystalline butterfly ships.
Oh, those things could be huge too. So if you did something, I mean, that's like 10 feet long.
I mean, it could be. Let's see. It's what, 1/12 scale?
Yeah.
Right? So 1/12 scale at 120 feet. I mean, it's big.
It's 12 feet long. At 10 feet. 10 feet long. But how cool would that be?
We said dream build. There you go. That's
fair enough.
You
my
did say dream build, yes.
Yep.
I'm totally fine.
We will
with
play
that
the game in my backyard.
I was going to say, do I have any place to put it? No.
Yes.
But I don't have children. I can dedicate like the backyard to it. It's fine.
There you go.
Are you a crafter or perhaps you work for an armada? Write to us, info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric at goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt at goblinscorner.com.
And of course, you can find us on all the things, like Twitter. Matt's on TikTok doing stuff. Check it out. It's true. All right, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about gaming on a budget. Now, Scotty, you went into a little bit about this earlier, and I think it's important that people kind of get a sense of how to create miniatures and terrain for when you're going to play a TTRPG, whatever it is, right? Could be Shadowrun, could be Troika, which would be a great game to play, just saying, folks. Or it could be D&D, whatnot, Pathfinder. There are two types of folks. Matt, what two types of folks do we have that generally use miniatures and terrain?
Well, you've got the people that buy lots of stuff,
which we love. We support those third-party content creators, folks. Buy their stuff, especially dice.
If you've got the cash for it, we love that. Like, absolutely support people that you appreciate their products.
Yeah, so dice, terrain, all that stuff. There's lots of stuff on Etsy you can buy as well. People all over the place making stuff nowadays. It's so great to be a nerd these days.
Right. You've got people doing 3D printing and licensing busts and miniatures and stuff. Yeah. Super dope.
And the second type of people, which we're talking about tonight.
People who make lots of stuff.
Which we also love.
Yeah.
So we've talked about before, visual aids are great for gaming. And you want to check our previous episode, go check it out. But it often comes down to just two types of visual aids. We've got the simple stuff that you play with, which are physical reps. They're good for tactics. They're great for players. You can beat them up. So if you break them or drop them, just make another one, right? So cheap and easy. And then we've got the
realistic stuff. You've got, for dioramas and stuff that's intentionally true to scale, like a 12-foot Elven Armada, showpieces and thematic elements.
Yeah. So that's great if you want to maybe break out the big bad and get the players in the mood, get them scared and so forth. But tonight, we want to talk about playing the game and the stuff that you can make that are playing. One thing of note, we are not going to be talking about much digital work. So stuff like D&D Beyond or Roll20, it's for another show. We're talking about the physical reps that we want to craft.
Many people often look at, D&D, for example, and they're hesitant to play because there's a bunch of financial obligations at the beginning. You got to buy books and get miniatures and a board and all of that stuff. But realistically, you can play with next to nothing as long as you've got the 3 books, right? The 3 course or even the beginning set. You can do that just fine. So we're going to peel back the curtain a little bit and focus on what you actually need. And then we're going to talk about what's great to have as well.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about some bare bones stuff, Scotty. I see two things that you need to play: terrain and figures. So let's talk about maybe some stuff that could be used as terrain from a very like strict bare bones minimalist idea.
Oh yes, definitely. My start was mostly cardboard. I've moved on a bit from that. But I'm still making stuff that's very inexpensive. Okay. So let me give you an example. My latest iteration of my tiles are paint boards that are like, those canvas boards that are just on like cardstock.
Mm-hmm.
So let me show you a couple of examples. Here's a small room on a paint board that I painted. And look how fantastic that looks. It's just a cardboard paint board. Here's another
is that the
one.
Stuff you get at like the dollar store and such?
Yeah, you can get these at the dollar store now. They sell them at the dollar store. This is another one that's like a wooden floor, right?
Oh, cool.
This is a stamp technique I do where I just carve it into foam. I have a video on this. I carve it into foam and just stamp it on the thing on the canvas, and you're good to go. I add a little bit of distressing on here with some dry brushing, which is just a little bit of paint on your brush, dry brushing. And then you have like this distressed kind of wooden floor room. And here's an example of a dungeon tile with, like the stone work and everything. And look how fantastic that's just stamped on there. That's all
Very
that
cool.
is. It's just putting a stamp and turning it, to make the different patterns of stone. That's all that is. And it's just cheap. Now, what I do is I mix glue with the paint when I do the first kind of gesso layer, and that makes it even harder than it normally was. So these things are, virtually indestructible, and they're almost flat. Look how flat that is.
Nice.
So you can carry them with you. Yeah, stick them in a backpack. You
You can carry an entire dungeon.
So you can carry a lot of these with you. So that's a nice cheap way to do it. Yeah, cardboard is a little, it's a frailer. It can bend, it can curl, that kind of thing. That's why I like these tiles. They're still super cheap. But now they're very sturdy. I'm not gonna have to worry about the bending and that kind of stuff. And they're actually flatter than the cardboard because the cardboard has the corrugation in it.
That's true.
So
yeah.
you can get away with that. You can get away with cardboard if you could just take a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, and draw things on cardboard and cut it out and make stand-ups and that kind of thing. If you just have zero budget, or you can do things with like I've done with get a little bit of craft paint. Wasn't much money, a little bit of craft paint, and the stamp, which is just a dollar store foam core board that I cut up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a couple bucks, between the paint and the stamp. And then, so you got it. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to get foam cutters. You don't have to get all this other stuff. Now with figures, I am a sucker for figures. I love miniatures. But these days, there are so many ways to get them, right? You don't have to get 12 orcs from, buy 50 packages and try to get 12 orcs, right? You have all these options. You can 3D print them. You can buy 3D prints on Etsy. You were talking about Etsy. That's a great resource. I 3D print myself. But I also buy stuff on Etsy, like some of the bigger pieces that my machine's smaller, so I can't make those bigger pieces. So I'll buy some of those. There's nothing wrong with crafting stuff yourself. So I've got the whole range. I've got we're talking about the higher end stuff. That's the terrain you can buy. I've got some of that, and then I've got just the cheap, like these boards, just the cheapest terrain you could possibly make. And they're side by side. My stuff sits side by side. There's no I can't bring this out because I have this really nice looking thing, and the board, or this may not be as good looking. I marry it all together. It's all comes into one thing.
I love that you said that because that's something that a lot of people think, I need a complete set of tiles to be able to show. No, I've literally played games where the DM was drawing on some grid paper and he had some tiles, and then we grabbed some of my kids' wooden blocks to represent, like the walls and stuff like that. And then we had some store-bought miniatures that another friend of ours had paid a bunch of money, so they looked really awesome walking through all of this stuff. Mix and match. Like,
Absolutely.
The whole point of this is to play a game.
Totally. And like with we call terrain that you just put around. You put it around on the boards and in the
Scatter
in the world scatter, right? So you can do that with paper. If you're drawing on a big grid map or whatever on the table, just put little pieces of terrain down. Say you didn't make a cave, right? You could draw the cave on the mat. Then you put stalagmites and stalactites and stuff down. That just that little detail will make it come alive for your players.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have a whole, cave system made up. If you just draw it and add some of that scatter, you'll be amazed how much it enhances just a drawing on the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bottles and cans make great trees in a pinch.
They do.
Yeah. Columns.
Yep.
Bottle caps, honestly, we're talking about a budget. Let's say you don't have the money to buy a bunch of, characters and stuff. You get a regular sized bottle cap that's about 1 inch wide, fits on one of the rollout mats, or like you said, some tiles or something like that. That's perfect to represent a character.
And if you want to get really fancy with it, you can print out tokens, cut them out, stick them in the bottle caps, and then grab just the dual mixing plunger of epoxy. Just put a couple drops in there. Boom. They'll last for nearly ever, and you can chuck them in there. They're great.
Right. If you need your 20 orcs, you get 20 bottle caps. You print out 20 pictures of an orc and you just pop it on the bottle cap. That's all you need to do. It just depends, your budget, how much time you have to craft or to paint miniatures. Do you want to buy miniatures that are already painted? Do you, which you can.
Sure.
Do you want to paint them yourself? So there's all that factors in, to, how involved you get in the crafting. But you don't have to go full in. You can put your feet in and just have stuff, that enhances it, but you don't have the whole spiel. You don't have the whole circus.
Yeah. Now I've seen some people do really realistic stuff with their crafting, and I've seen some stuff where they literally just make a little couple of poker chips, and they just paste on a character that they've printed out on the poker chip. Now stuff like that because you've done conventions and stuff where people are playing games. Stuff like that is really easy to carry. So I could totally see your painted boards and some chip pieces that are the right size of characters. You could stick that in a backpack. You don't have to worry about it. If it gets lost, you print another one. And that's super cheap.
Organized.
It is super organized.
Doing the poker chip method, you could literally walk around with your entire adventure already stacked in order.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
And
exactly.
literally just
You just wrap it up, and you'd literally level 1, level 2, as they go down into the dungeon.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Like this stack. Yeah, this stack is for this room or for this section.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, yep. That's really cool. I've seen people use blank playing cards as terrain pieces as well. So they'll draw something on them, or they will use them as a grid. So I saw this at a bar one time. They were doing some D&D at a bar, and this guy breaks out a bunch of playing cards, and it's random cards. He would just deal out random cards, and that became the dungeon. So it was like a randomly generated dungeon by shuffling. I thought that was such a cool idea.
Nice.
And you could buy a pack of blank playing cards. You just make them if you wanted.
Or just use index cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, they're super
index
cheap.
Cards are my big.
They're super, super cheap.
Matt loves index cards.
Yes.
He writes all his notes down in index cards.
I do.
No, they're great. They're great. Yeah.
Now, I love wooden blocks, and that's definitely something we'll talk about after the break in terms of top 5 things. Wooden blocks are great because you can buy them at the dollar store. They come in like 1 inch, 2 inches. You can even get the big ones, so you could represent 3D representation of monsters. They're blocks, right? But that's always a fun thing to have in your repertoire if you need to represent trees or mountains or walls or just characters.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, totally.
So let's talk a little bit about maybe some useful materials that are 100% free or near free, like with under $10. And we've listed a few out here. Let's talk a little bit about these. So first off, cardboard. And you've mentioned this, Scotty, cardboard is ubiquitous everywhere.
That's one thing that everybody can get in every country, cardboard.
Yes. What are some of your favorite cardboard uses when you craft stuff?
I use I use cardboard or cardstock, which is just cardboard with a little thicker cardboard without the corrugations. I use it quite a bit, and I'll build stuff out of it just instead of foam, because if I can build something out of cardboard or cardstock, that's my preferred method as opposed to building out of foam, because foam, it's just a lot of rigmarole to do it. You got to have the machine and you got to, all this stuff. With cardboard, it's just like, and if you screw up, you didn't spend 2 hours, carving it out of foam.
Get another Amazon box and
you
call
just
it
grab
a day.
another Amazon box and you go to it. I recently made I have a technique with cardboard where I drag a sharp object along the cardboard between the corrugations, and it makes essentially boards into the corrugation.
Oh, cool.
That you can see, like a deck. And I made a ship. Unfortunately, I don't have the ship right here, but I made a ship. It was like a sand runner it was just totally out of cardboard. It was just that technique of doing the decking. And then for the outside of the ship, I wanted to have an interesting design on it. So I wet the cardboard, removed the first layer of cardboard, and then I had the corrugations. I put some white glue on it to harden it up, bent it into the hull, and then kind of did a shape in the front, and it became this cool design. The actual corrugations of the cardboard became this cool design element in the sand ship.
That's cool.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just like you can do a lot with cardboard.
And for those of you listening on Spotify or iTunes or whatnot, we'll post some links on our website to Scotty's images as well. So look forward to that. What are some other things, Matt, we can use that are super cheap and free?
Well, in the same vein as cardboard, paper.
Yeah, so paper towels.
Yep. Toilet paper and just junk mail. Junk mail's the best.
I have it's someplace over there, but I have a island that I have crafted out of junk mail and glue. And I literally just shredded a bunch of junk mail because I get so much of it, and everybody who lives in the U.S. tends to get a lot of junk mail. And it's free.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of stuff with it. And I consider it recycling.
And it doesn't matter if you mess it up because they're going to replace it for you.
With the paper towels and toilet paper you're talking about, that's one of my favorite techniques because you can do so much with that. Let me show you here a couple of examples. So here is a tree on a rock, and this is made out of toilet paper, paper towels, and Elmer's glue. So what I do is I put 50% white glue, the Elmer's glue, 50% water, soak these in that, and then just twist them around, let them dry. Takes a while to dry because they're soaked. But then you get this super hard kind of thing, and they're actually a little flexible, so which is cool. So, when you hit something, you don't necessarily knock it over. It kind of flexes a bit. Here's another example of the toilet paper towel technique. Here's this queen bug thing. And
that's nice.
These are like spider bits that I got off a Dollar Tree spider at Halloween. And then the body is like paper towels and toilet paper, just, soaked, shaped, and then let it dry. And it's, this is super hard.
Sure.
You know what that looks like? That looks like the giant
Starship
bug.
Troopers?
Yes, I was about to say it. Would you like to know more?
Yeah, that was definitely my inspiration for this thing.
That is great.
That's just the kind of stuff you can do out of toilet paper and paper towels. I love it. I do hills out of it. I do rocks, trees, all kinds of stuff.
I've shown before, like over here. Matt, actually, do you have the stalagmite? It's right in front of you. No, yeah.
No, I had a cord.
You're reaching for it, Matt. Yeah, hold that up to the camera there. So that is just cardboard on the bottom, which literally is, I think, my kid's diapers box. And then that's a little bit of junk mail to form it, and then toilet paper. I draped it, and I made a kind of like a paper mache mix, but I used glue, so wood glue, and some drywall mud.
This
and
one's
fantastic.
Paw Patrol.
It's Paul
Fantastic.
Petrolius. And you could step on that thing. It is rock hard.
Oh, you could step
right,
on it,
right.
but
That
you wouldn't
glue
like
dries
it.
rock hard.
Yeah. So yeah, and we mentioned glue. And I know if anybody knows DM Scotty, he's the king of hot glue. Hot glue is a great thing to make stuff out of. Yeah, it's got it right there.
Yeah, the hot glue. I love these little hot glue guns because of a few things. One is when you turn it on, there's a light that shows that it's on. That's good, so you don't burn yourself.
Yeah.
But these cheap ones have these uncovered nozzles, right? This metal nozzle, which you can use to shape the hot glue. You can run it over the hot glue, shape it. You can drag it through the hot glue, shape it. The ones with the plastic coverings, you can't really do that. So it's actually the cheaper ones that I like, and these mini ones are great. I have big ones too for like bigger projects, but for 70% of the stuff I do, I use the smaller gun, and you can find these. They come in various brands, but they all look like this, and you can get them on Amazon or other places. But the company that makes these sells them to all these other companies, and so they look the same. And they'll have different ones on Amazon, but they look the same. But yeah, this gun is amazing to use. It's awesome.
And if it breaks, you've wasted only a couple of dollars, and you haven't bought anything expensive.
I think they're like $10, and they come with glue sticks. So it's a great deal. And if they break, you like this one has lasted forever. I don't think I've ever had one. I've had one glue gun short out on me very early in my DMing career, which freaked me out because the sparks actually shot out of it. And I actually have it on my channel. It's a way old video, but
nice.
These guns I have never had go out on me.
That's interesting that the cheap ones never go out, whereas they're like
exactly
some of the more expensive ones died. Huh. Matt, what are some other things we can use?
I like plastic. I like it because it provides you with a lot of options that, well, first off, you don't get see-through cardboard, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, right there, that gives you a bonus.
You can make windows out of it.
Yep.
And it's invaluable for sci-fi.
Yes.
Yeah, because all the weird shapes you can get. I'll have people look for shape, like if you're going to throw a lid away that looks cool or whatever, give it to me. Like I have people that give me junk because it's like, oh, that's a cool shape. I spray it silver and it looks like the ship engine or whatever. It's like, those shapes are invaluable for like modern or particularly sci-fi stuff.
All right. We're going to talk a little bit more about crafting on a budget, and we'll talk about some super cheap things to get you started and show some more awesome projects, but we'll be right back
after these messages. If there are any topics you would like us to cover, goods or services you would like us to review, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, we would love for you to contact us at info@goblinscorner.com.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
So we're talking crafting on a budget with DM Scotty, and we're just talking a little bit about some things you can make, right? So different types of terrain, different types of playing pieces, and we were talking a little bit about some of the materials that you can literally get for free or under $10. And I think this is a good segue to maybe talk about a couple things you can make. Scotty, you've talked on the break about toilet paper rolls. Tell me a little bit about toilet paper rolls and some of the other free stuff that you can do.
Oh gosh. I love toilet paper rolls. I use them all the time. They're great for tree cores when you're doing a tree. So let me show you this boulder here. This tree on a boulder is basically a paper towel roll soaked in water, twisted up into this cool shape. And then I put paper towel and toilet paper on it, and 50% water, 50% white glue to harden it up. And then I've got this fantastic looking tree that's like super hard and just really durable. And same thing with the roots. I just twisted up toilet paper into roots and soaked it in white glue. And look how great that looks, like snaking down the rock.
That looks awesome.
Another example is this purple worm. It's one of my classic crafts. I made it out of toilet paper rolls, just kind of segmented up the worm. The plates are just from cardstock that I cut out in the plate shape. and just a fantastic craft. And basically get some weight on it, or to fill it out. I stuff some paper towels inside the toilet paper rolls so it doesn't collapse. And then at the bottom,
Right.
I put like a bag of sand that's soaked in white glue, so it gives it weight. So see how it won't fall over. It'll stand up because it's really front heavy. So I love using toilet paper rolls. They're a great saver. I save them at my house. So it's like whenever we change the toilet paper roll, it gets put in a bin. But yeah, that's a great and totally free material that you can use. You could even use it for pillars if you want fat pillars. You could use it for pillars. You can use it for cores for a lot of stuff if you need to. Because it's just it's so versatile, and we're saving the environment. We're not throwing it away, right?
Recycling.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I've seen a lot of people craft stuff with aluminum foil.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to see, I've seen people do trees with aluminum foil, but that seems to me a little more difficult because then you've got to find something to attach paint to, because aluminum foil sometimes you can chip that paint off if it gets bent up. But as a bonus, I guess it's pretty hard if you roll it up enough.
It is, yeah. Aluminum foil is a great material, and it's something you can also get at the Dollar Tree. So you can spend $1.25 a roll on it. It's great for rocks, like making rocks out of. What I tend to do though is when I shape the object out of aluminum foil, I'll cover it with toilet paper and white glue, and so that smooths it out. If you want, like for example, like this rock, I didn't use foil in it, but I could have. But what I used, because it was so big, I didn't want that much foil in it, so I used wadded up paper towels, and then covered it with more paper towels and toilet paper to get this cool rock. But for smaller rocks, yeah, for bridges, I've used it for like rock bridges, because you can literally form it, into the shape of the bridge, and then like I say, if you cover it, you'll never know it's aluminum foil. So either way, you can do it. Aluminum foil paint can have a hard time sticking to it. Even if you spray paint it, sometimes the paint doesn't want to stick to it. So, but if you cover it with the paper towels and toilet paper, no problem.
And you just got basically a nice form underneath that you can then attach the paint.
It becomes the armature of what you're doing, right? And if you want something like a long tentacle or something, like an enormous tentacle, I've done this before. You can put the foil around the wire and shape the wire, and then put the foil around it, and then you'll have a hard core inside the aluminum, and then you can cover it, like I said before, and then you'll have like a cool, giant tentacle or whatever coming out of the ground if you want like an enormous tentacle or something like that, or tongue.
I think that's how Zerjester makes his antlers.
Oh, when he crafts that stuff out?
Yeah.
That's
quite possibly. Now, obviously, craft paint is pretty ubiquitous in this whole thing, but Matt, you were talking about Sharpies as well. Tell me a little bit about Sharpies.
So I love Sharpies, and I love Sharpies because they allow me to do things that look like art. You take a clear plastic object, you doodle on it. I'm not graphically inclined, right? I can't draw pictures per se, but I can make things that look pretty. And those work perfectly for stained glass windows, or you can use a black one and just draw the little lattice work lines for leaded windows and things like that to put on taverns or churches or what have you. And for the stained glass stuff, you just drop one white LED behind it, and boom, you've got a beautiful stained glass window.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic technique. I love that technique.
By the way, you were talking about cardboard earlier in terms of, just craft stuff. This is actually a Pop-Tart box.
Oh, awesome. I love to use stuff like that that's already the shape, and then just add to it, right? That saves you so much craft time.
The other thing you can do real quick is you can just take a kid's coloring book, slap the clear plastic over it, draw a flower, a rose, right? Anything from the coloring book, and then in the black Sharpie, color it in, and boom, you've got like art that actually looks like something.
That's cool. Yeah, I never thought about that. Actually using like the coloring books and the drawing books to just make stuff that you can then put up for a game. That's a great idea.
It is, really is.
Now, I in terms of finishing, I'm a big fan of Drywall Mud because I have a big, first off, I've been renovating my house, and so I have a lot of drywall lying around, but the Drywall Mud is very cheap. You can get for $5, you get a giant bag, and I would choose the bag over the stuff in the pail because you can then mix it and use it to harden all kinds of other stuff. Another thing that's super cheap, and I didn't come up with this, I think I got this from Black Magic Craft, but I'm not sure, was acrylic caulk and baking soda. And those two things, you go get yourself the window caulk. You get it like Walmart for like $1, and you mix it with some baking soda. You can put it on top of whatever you're using. So if you're making some stuff with the toilet paper and glue, then it becomes a nice texture, and it's just a little bit of a texture that you can use to then paint, and it makes stuff look super real. So I actually did this with these hoodoos, like these little terrain pieces, and it made, first off, you could step on these and it's not going to mess anything. And this is just cardboard with a little bit of that. And I don't know if you can see it from the actual camera angle or not, but when I used the brush to make that technique, after you dry brush it and paint it, you've got all these wonderful levels and strata in the rock. And this is something that's literally cost me $1 because and I made like 12 of these things. They're all in the back.
And, with the caulk, you can, if you have it in the gun or whatever, you can put a stopper in the end, and save it. It'll usually save for quite a while. Also, make sure when you get the caulking that you don't get the silicone mixed with because there's a lot of ones that are either actually all silicone or mixed acrylic and silicone. Do not get the mix. Get pure acrylic caulk, which is, like you say, you can get it really cheap if you get it at the right place.
It's like the cheapest stuff you can buy, too, which is great. Right. But yeah, if you get the silicone stuff, then it won't take the paint and it'll just like flake off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's true, but it is a great way to make waterfalls and things like that if you use alcohol ink.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to use silicone, yeah. It's messy and sticky. But if you have the patience, it's good stuff.
I was going to say about baking soda really quick. Baking soda is a way to set cyanoacrylate, crazy glue or super glue, whatever, almost instantaneously and rock hard. You have no room for error.
Yeah, because it's instantaneous, but it turns into basically plastic.
Right. But if you're just lining the corner of something and you just want it dry now because you don't have the patience, or you're trying to do it on a very tight time frame, you can do a line of cyanoacrylate, drop a little baking soda in the corner of it, boom, you have an instant bond.
And then all you need is just some textures, right? So you could use rocks and dirt and bark and sand, stuff like that. Scotty, now you have very strong feelings about flocking.
Oh, yes. I do. I don't want the flock people to hate me, but it's like flocking to me is like crafting herpes. It's like glitter. I guarantee if you have some flocking on something, you put it in a box and then you take it somewhere and then you take it out of the box, there will be flocking in the box. It's just messy. I don't like messing with it. What I like to do is a technique where I take, you could use tea also, tea that you've used, but I like to use pencil shavings because they're more defined. And they look more like grass or moss. And I've actually used it on this tree, and you just mix the pencil shavings with white glue, water and white glue, and then you can just, paste it on to your thing. And when it dries, they're rock hard. They're not coming off. You won't find this in your box when you open your box, but it still gives the same nice effect that there's moss or whatever, or grass growing on something, without the mess.
That looks super cool, by the way.
It does. It's a great technique.
Yeah. And we've done the tea thing before. In fact, my lava spider here, this is just tea. And as you can see, it's just got a little bit of glue. I hardened this. This is super hard. And it's just black paint, and then you mix in some red. Actually, I think it's red first, and then you dry brush the black on top. But it makes for a great base. And it's pretty simple, right? There's nothing special about this, but I can totally throw this on the board and play it.
Right. And another thing you could do is, for ground, you could use old coffee grounds. Like when you use your coffee grounds, mix it with white glue, water, and I put a little bit of sand in there too. The different size aggregate sand, and mix it up, and then just put it on your base, and you'll have a nice rock hard base when it dries, and it'll have a great dirt texture. It'll have a great ground texture on it.
So you use the used coffee grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And do you paint it anything, or is it you just kind of leave it the color of the coffee grounds?
I usually paint it. Yeah, I mean it is the dark brownish color, but it tends to be very dark. Once it hardens, it tends to be very dark brown, darker than it was. So I do like to paint it.
So what we're saying here is like you can literally find junk, stuff that's lying around the house, and stuff that I would say, like you said, go to the Dollar Tree or Dollar Store or whatnot, or even like Walmart or one of the big box chains. Get yourself some stuff under $5-10. You could start making a ton of stuff.
If you're feeling particularly anarchic, go dumpster diving.
Oh yeah.
Or you could ask for other people's trash and
That's
literally make stuff out of it.
Yeah.
If you had 5 things to get started, Scotty, what would you say would be 5 things that people should maybe start with?
Yeah. You don't have to have a lot of outlay of money. But here's the things I think you should start with. Definitely get some glue all. There are other types of glue that you can use, craft glue, but I really like the glue all. That's my favorite. But there are others. But I would definitely get white glue. I don't use this isn't school glue. This is a little better than the school glue. It's very similar, but it is a bit stronger than the school glue. So I like the glue all in particular. But I would get white glue, and I would get a glue gun because you can do so much with this. You can do texture. You can if you're just doing cardboard terrain or anything, even plastic. Depending on the application, you could glue anything with this. And yeah, it's just the glue guns are invaluable. I use them on trees to make texture or stones. You
can make a gelatinous cube with it.
You could make a gelatinous cube with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have by basically folding a clear plastic, cube, the 4 sides down, glue in the corners, and then it's empty, and you can actually put it over the miniature, so it looks like it ate the miniature. Yeah,
exactly.
And you can do texture on the side of it, with the glue gun. If you're careful, some glue guns get really hot. But if you're careful, you can not melt the plastic. But glue gun definitely. And get some cheap brushes. You can there's so many places you can get cheap brushes. Walmart or whatever, your big box store, or even the flea market or somewhere like that. My next would be you want some paint, and I would just start with the cheapest craft paint you can get. Make sure it's acrylic paint and not like the kindergarten paint that people use.
Tempera paint.
Tempera paint. Yeah, don't use tempera paint. Use acrylic craft paint. That's a better generic all-around paint. And if you get black, brown, and gray, that's going to be great to start. And if you get a few more like a light gray, a light brown, you can dry brush on top of that and get a variation in tone, of the stuff. So that's so easy to do. Yeah. And it's not that big of an outlay to get those paints, especially if you get them at a big box store or something like that. You can also buy them in sets. Like you could get a dozen paints, and then you have all the different colors, that you would probably need for a while. Maybe $10 or $12 at the most. This isn't totally necessary, but a cutting mat is nice to have, because it has a couple things. One is it has a grid on it that is measured in inches. And if you're playing D&D, the inch is king, right? Because essentially an inch equals 5 feet. Okay. So 30 feet is 6 inches. Yeah. So That's a great way to measure without having any measuring stick at all. You can actually measure on the mat if you do, if you want. Also, when you're cutting or making a mess, you can clean it up. Most stuff wipes off really easily off of it. And if you get some stains on it, it doesn't matter. It's a cutting mat, And then eventually, when you destroy it,
Right.
you can buy another one, and however many years it takes you to destroy this one. So they last a long time. It's a great place to have, especially if you don't have a specific crafting area. It can be great to have that. But yeah, I think that's what you get started, and then you can use all those things to make cardboard terrain, to make the other terrain I've talked about with paper towels and toilet paper and all that stuff, because it glues together. All that stuff glues together. Anything porous glues together really well with the white glue. So like paper, cardboard, all that stuff, cardstock. Cardstock is essentially cereal boxes. You could cut up cereal boxes and make stuff out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you get that stuff, that's the start. And that's really not a big outlay. You may already have some of the stuff and just not even realize it. You may have some glue, or you may have a hot glue gun. Maybe your girlfriend is a scrapbooker, or your wife, and she's got some of this stuff already.
Oh, then you're going to be able to steal so much.
I guarantee, like the materials we were talking about earlier, everyone's got
yeah,
some of that.
yeah.
Everyone's got cardboard. Most people probably have some
Right.
Elmer's glue. Most people, anybody, you go outside and get sand and rocks.
Yeah, you can actually sweep it up out of the street. It kind of accumulates on the curb. You can just sweep that into a jar, and you've got essentially the different size sand aggregate.
That's awesome. Matt, what are 5 things you would use?
Old fabric.
Old fabric. What would you use the old fabric for?
You can make tents out of it. You can actually use it to drape objects in using the PVA, the white glue.
Mm-hmm.
And once it dries, it becomes solid.
Like ghosts. People make those ghosts just like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen people use the really, really cheap craft paper, like the different colored craft paper. And because of the texture, the fibrous texture, if you hit it with the glue and you shape it, it looks like leather. So you can make like leather tents with it after you've painted it, and just the texture comes up. So that's another cool thing.
The crepe paper?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely markers, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You can cheat, by the way, alcohol inks by taking felt tip markers, putting them in a container with some isopropyl, and then painting out with it. It's not as quality as obviously using proper alcohol inks, but it's significantly cheaper.
That sounds like fun. And what would you use the alcohol inks for?
Things that you can't normally paint, you can still dye, like the silicone caulking. You can't paint it very well. The paint usually just chips off or what have you, but you can take that and basically dye it to make waterfalls or even lakes, rivers, what have you. So that's an option. Ice. It would be amazing to make like an ice wall or something like that.
That would be kind of cool.
Toys, old toys, you destroy them. For that matter, old electronics.
Yes.
If you have a broken phone, if you've got anything, just tear it apart and you can break bits off of it. That's great for cyberpunk style stuff, but some of that stuff you can just use for fantasy settings or D&D.
I want to pause you on the toys thing real quick, because that is something that people don't seem to think a lot about, that you can make some amazing things with just some of the toys. I'll give you an example here. This thing came out of, I think I got this at the dollar store, and it's just like a little cannon. And this was, I think it was supposed to be something that was going to go in like an aquarium or something like that, right?
Sure.
But look at this thing. It's a freaking cannon. And with literally just a little bit of paint, I could make this a little bit more realistic looking, right? So you could maybe paint some etchings or something, or I could carve it up and make it look like it's an old weathered cannon, stuff like that. This thing is a treasure chest. Look at this. Wouldn't that be great?
Absolutely.
This stuff just comes from the dollar store. This stuff comes from the pet store and stuff like that.
You mentioned this earlier, to me. We were talking about it before the show. Air dry clay in toys allows you to do things like this. This is one of those spider skeletons. We're not going to get into that you find at Halloween, at like Kroger or whatever. It's a couple bucks, but you have taken the air dry clay and built it up and given it some spikes and some more armor so that it's not a skeleton so much as like an actual enormous spider.
It's not yet finished, by the way, but
Right.
it will be. But yeah, so that's air dry clay is pretty cheap. Now that's the stuff that the really hard air dry clay, but you can also get the stuff that the kids air dry clay, which is somewhat soft to the touch, and then it dries hard, and that's actually a lot easier to use. But it's whatever you got.
Totally.
And Scotty, you're big on using toys and remaking them into stuff as well.
I do, yeah. I love using toys for crafting. You can go to, secondhand stores and that kind of thing, pick them up. But I found this Groot figure, and I turned it into this evil treant monster. And so I've got like, these tentacles coming out of its head, and it's just really cool. And you'd never recognize it as a Groot. I put hot glue over it, and that kind of thing. Did a cool base. So you can take toys and turn them into something cool that they were never, made for. And toys are a great resource for crafting. So don't leave that out when you're if you go to like a secondhand store or something and you're happen to be in there. Always check out the toy bin and see what you can find. I know a lot of other crafters that are big into that, like taking toys and repurposing them.
One of the ones I love that you did was it was like a monster build, and you used some of the dollar store monster toys that you got, and you just kind of kit bashed them together with a bunch of other plastic pieces and some craft paint. And that was a really cool thing to do. If you have kids, they were going to break some toys, take all the pieces, mash them together into something horrible. And I love, we were talking about this on the break as well, plastic flowers.
Yes. Yeah, I love plastic plants. And I'm going to show you some examples of why I do. Okay, so I got this at the Dollar Tree, and look, it has these cool things on it that just pop right off the stem. And look, you've got instant tentacles right there. You could put those, coming out of the ground or some kind of Cthulhu thing or whatever. I didn't have to craft this at all. I could just use it right as it is, paint it or not. It's a kind of a cool fleshy color. That's another thing that's great. Another plant I have here, this flower, you might think, oh, that's flower, whatever. Okay. So, but this has these kind of gnarly stems on it. So if I take this off and I take the flowers off, look at that. That's a great branch that you
Sure.
can use
Yeah,
on your
that's
trees.
great.
And then, it's flexible. So when you hit it on your table, it's not going to knock over because it
Right.
flexes. When that person goes and grabs their mini and rushes past it, if you have a full, wire tree or canopy or whatever, they're going to knock that over when they hit it. But with this flexible stuff, I love that because it doesn't. Now, I've just used every excuse I can to show you this cool tree that I made. But these are just plastic plants too. These are not painted. These are just put right on there from the plastic plant. That's what's so great about these plants. You don't even really have to paint them if they're the right color, like these leaves are. You just glue them on and you're good to go. So yeah, plastic plants are a time saver. You can use these, all these kind of bits for, tentacles or, the stamens and the flowers. You can use as little mouths or, bits on other terrain or monsters. So yeah, just look out what I call the crafter's eye. Okay. You were talking earlier about, the cannon and the chest and all that kind of stuff. And you were using the crafter's eye when you did that. You went into the store, you saw that cannon, and you said, oh, with a little bit of work, I can make this something cool for my table. And I bring that crafter's eye whenever I go shopping and see stuff. It's like, oh, what can I make out of this? Particularly the Dollar Tree or like cheap stores or secondhand stores, because then you're spending very little money to get a lot of benefit.
So what we're talking about, folks, is all of these things you can use to craft on the cheap, to get a lot of really fun things out there, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
and fun.
Yeah. And one thing I want to mention is we mentioned the wooden blocks thing. I want to talk about monster blocks. And this is something that I did when I had absolutely no money and I wanted to just have some players play stuff. And I'll show you one. All it is one of those wooden blocks. It's got a little M on it, right? And all you do is you put a little red side and you've got, you can color them or you can make them look a lot more interesting than this. But I use them as NPCs. Drop one of them down. If it's dead, flip it over to red. That's all you got to do. And that way,
Fantastic.
when you're showing combat, it's super easy. You could do the same thing with poker chips. Have like one side dead, one side alive. You could do the same thing with bottle caps or any of that other stuff. The point is to play the game.
And the cool thing about the blocks is you could literally on one side write NPC, one side put an M for monster, right? Like G for guard.
Yeah.
There's 6 sides to work with.
Oh yes, you could have mixed groups. Like there's some guards that come into the fight, but you've got monsters you're fighting, so you know the difference.
Yep.
So yeah.
So there you have it. Several different things that you can use to create a whole bunch of terrain and characters for your TTRPG of choice on the fly, super cheap, with limited materials or stuff that you have lying around your house.
Absolutely.
Now, Scotty, where can interested folks find your videos?
I'm super easy to find. If you type in even DMsCraft, I've been around so long, I'm such an old fart, that if you type in DMsCraft in Google, it'll take you right to my channel. You don't even have to go to my channel. But I am TheDMsCraft on YouTube. It's my 10-year anniversary, so pretty cool.
Happy anniversary.
I had a lot of crafters make me little congratulatory videos and stuff, which was really touched my heart. Yeah, you can find me there. Also, we have a big group. It's over 40,000 members on the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook. If you're on Facebook and you're interested in this stuff, check it out, because people like, everyday people are posting their ideas, their stuff. And so it's just a treasure trove of ideas, and new videos are getting posted on there all the time from different crafters. So yeah, if you're interested in this at all and you're on Facebook, check out the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook.
Now, Scotty, you also have a new thing that's coming out. You got a game coming out. Is that correct?
I do. I am so excited. I know that, probably everybody's like, oh, I'd love to have my own game, but it's kind of been my dream forever to have my own game. And I've been working on this game for several years. The idea was to make a game that you never had to look up the rules, that you could just have a character sheet and you never have to look up spells. You never have to look up what this rule is and what that rule is. It's called the EZ D6 system, and it's my own system, and I've done a lot of playtesting with it. It's fantastic. I love it because it's so quick. The game moves lightning fast, so because the rules are so quick, and the rules it does have are the rules that matter to players. Because I have things where you craft your own spell on the spot, right, within a school of magic, which is fun. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
You have karma that you get, which when you have bad rolls, you get karma to use later to have better rolls.
Oh, that's cool.
You can spend your karma to increase your rolls. So on anything, almost anything in the game, you can use it on. So it's fantastic, and that's great. So players can hoard it for that time when they really want to, bust loose, or they can as things are ramping up and they're taking too much damage, or they really want something to happen this turn, they can spend that pool of karma they've been saving and make it happen. So those are the kind of rules I love, because that puts the power in the player's hands, right?
Sure.
And the other rules that run the game are almost invisible. Like the game mechanics are so easy that I could sit down with a total new player and an expert player, and they're both going to have the same amount of fun, because the new player will not feel intimidated by the rules. Because basically in the game, you tell me what you're doing, and then I just tell you what to roll. That's it. The rules are so simple. So I love it. And it's going to be coming out. It should be a few months now. It's in the editing phase right now. It'll be on Amazon. You can order it on Amazon as a print on demand. Also, we'll have special packs that have dice, and there might be some other goodies. A glow in the dark poster. So we're going with glow in the dark stuff, which is really cool. I'm excited. And then it'll also be on Drive-Thru RPG. So you can do print on demand or like PDFs for that. So if you want to check it out before you buy a book or whatever, you can get the PDF. So, and these are through Runehammer Games. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brandish Gilhelm, who is the crazy, awesome genius of Runehammer Games. He does Index Card RPG, which is an amazing game. And so he's going to be publishing my book. So, yeah, I'm just awestruck all around because I'm so excited to get this game out to people, and I'm so excited to be under the Runehammer thing. I'm like the first non-Brandish thing that he's put out.
Got you. Very cool.
I'm just humbled and honored that he likes it that much that he's willing to do that. So, and we had a fantastic artist named Sean Bova do the art, and the art it has a certain amount of whimsy to it and fun to it, but it's just great, fantastically cool art. Like the art is, it hits all the marks. It's like terrible and beautiful at the same time. You know, it has that scary aspect to it, and then it has that whimsy to it. So it's just this really weird combination of art that just makes the art fantastic. All the hero paths, as they're called, have art, and a lot of the monsters do, and there's a lot of his art spark through the book. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there that will be coming out. It should be a couple months. Hopefully I didn't I'm not jumping the gun there, but it's still in the editing phase. We're still editing it down. We want to get it perfectly for people to run it. And yeah, so sorry I took so long, but I was just excited about it.
No, it's good that you're excited about your game.
We'll have to get you back on the show so you can show off the game when it comes out.
Please do. Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
DM Scotty is the creator of the YouTube series, TheDMsCraft. DM Scotty, thanks for hanging out and chatting with us so much.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks, Eric and Matt, for having me. It was just so much fun, and I love this community. I love, everything about role playing. It's something that just nothing else can quite compare to. Yeah, thanks again for having me as I ramble on about how much I love this, and
it's good to see people excited about things. I love it.
Yeah, I was about to stand up on the chair and say, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." So I mean, we're good.
I love, I love everybody who does it. Everybody who does this and attempts to do it, and just like any art form, if you're intimidated by being a game master or DM, keep at it. You'll get better. There's a lot to it, but it's well worth it when your table. You've just had an awesome night of gaming, and it's stories that people will tell from years from now. They'll talk about it.
Any questions or comments? Write to us. info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt@goblinscorner.com.
We're on all the things. Matt, what are some things we happen to be on?
We're on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok
as Goblins Corner,
and Instagram
as The Goblins Corner. Do you like our show? We hope so. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player, YouTube and Twitch.
If you could do us a favor and click the 5 stars, give us a review on iTunes, Podchaser, and YouTube, it boosts the show and it feeds the hungry algorithm.
The hungry algorithm is currently DM Scotty lurking in the corner with a hot glue gun and some toilet paper.
And plants.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name's Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Good night, folks.
The Goblins Corner has been written and produced by Eric Holden
and Matt Staples.
D20 did our music.
And this is, in fact, a subterranean production.
Your voice is so low.